Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm giving here back another video. Today's episode, we're going to take a quick look at the Storm Mage Lich, the in-game build guide for Path of Exile 2. So we're going to specifically cover the late game build guide. If you want to follow the build link down in the description of the video, there's stuff for like the campaign and whatnot, but we're just going to kind of worry about late game mapping more than anything else. So let's first talk about the core concept of this build, and that is all going to fall around your skeletal Storm Mage. So these skeletal Storm Mages are basically going to chain lightning through packs, and we're going to sustain these through our skeletal clerics. And then to tank for our damage dealers, we're going to be using skeletal warriors, and then we're going to be using skeletal brutes as well. So you see skeletal brutes kind of down here towards the bottom. So they're going to kind of be our tank and control. For our specters, we're going to be using powered zealots. So they're going to apply both shock and projectile utility for us. And then we can buff our minions through things like our pain offering here. That's going to increase their attack and cast speed. So kind of like we were saying earlier, let's first go into our skeletal, where are they at? Skeletal Storm Mages here. So the first support gem that we'll be using is Muster. This is going to grant us increased minion damage per active minion and scaling power as our army kind of grows. We'll also be running Feeding Frenzy. This is going to make our minions, basically our Storm Mages, just do more damage. We'll be running Shock as well. This is going to let our mages basically apply this shock to enemies, increasing the damage that they take. We'll also be taking Overcharge here. This is going to increase our shock on the enemy targets. However, we will take some of that damage as well back as it is reflected back to us. Then we're also going to be taking Esh's Radiance here. This is going to give us increased lightning and chaos damage scales pretty well with our build. We'll kind of go into that later. But yeah, so skeletal mages are going to kind of be the core part of our build. This is where most of your damage is going to come from, and we basically try to funnel as much shock effect and lightning effects into this as we possibly can, just to make this sort of like a nuke for our build. Now we're also running Pain Offering up here as well. So Pain Offering is going to be probably one of your most important active skills. It's going to consume corpses to grant a lot of spell damage and cast speed to our minions. And with these specific supports here, it becomes near permanent and very, very potent. So we'll be running Danse Macabre, Sacrificial Offering, Prolonged Duration, Brutus's Brain, and Magnified Area. For our frontline, we're going to be running Skeletal Warriors here at the very top. So these are going to kind of act as like the meat shields, basically, of our mages. And we're running Maim, Sacrificial Lamb, Last Gasp, and a Meat Shield. One thing that's really nice about these specific warriors is they will, since we're running the Maim support, this is going to apply a slow effect to the mobs that are chasing us. So this is really nice. Anything that applies CC is going to be good for most builds. We're also running Skeletal Cleric down here below just to kind of sustain the build. So our clerics are going to keep our minions alive, and they can also revive our minions as well. And they're also going to basically increase the elemental resistance of our minions as well through this support gem here, Elemental Army, which is really nice. We want our minions to stay tanky. And long story short, most of these gems are just allowing our clerics to either heal more or kind of buff our other minions. Our core debuff is going to be Elemental Weakness here, and this is going to basically help us shred resistances. So Elemental Weakness paired with our Frost Bomb is going to put enemies into very low lightning resistance, which is going to be perfect for our Storm Mages to kind of nuke down targets. So the whole idea between Elemental Weakness and Frostbomb, again, is to just basically debuff the target and apply Elemental Exposure. Again, we're running Skeletal Brutes as well, kind of as a front line. We're also going to be running our Skeletal Frost Mages. This is going to give us an Icy Shield with their command ability. Another one that we accidentally skipped over here is our Specters. So your Spectre minion needs to be something called Powered Zealots. And these are basically going to become ranged shock spreaders for you, and they're just going to amp your total lightning damage. And this is also a very big part of your build. So your Zealots paired with your Storm Mages are going to be the vast majority of the damage that comes from the specific build. And then we're also going to be taking our Convalescence here. This is going to allow us to instantly start recharging our energy shield, and that will basically prevent our recharge from being interrupted. And you can actually get an extra use of this if you take Second Wind. So it's going to be something that we want very high uptime on. So you're going to take Second Wind, and you're also going to take cooldown recovery. So your gameplay loop is going to be to pre-buff your minions with Pain Offering, then to summon your core minions. So that's going to be our Skeletal Warriors, our Clerics, our Storm Mages, as well as our Brutes down here. From here, we want to apply our debuffs. So we want to apply our Elemental Weakness. We also want to apply our Frost Bomb. From here, we want to maintain our Pain Offering. And then from here, just kind of let our minions do the work. Of course, if you do need to buff up your energy shield again, you can use Convalescence. And of course, if you are bossing, you can use a Sigil of Power to give your minions a big buff. Okay, now let's go ahead and go into our Ascendancy here. So first thing you're going to get is something called Soulless Form. And Soulless Forms are going to kind of act as your foundation because this is going to smooth out our resource management by dealing with the mana degen that comes from some of our later Ascendancy choices, specifically the Necromantic Conduit. We'll talk about that next here in just a minute. It also gives us a pretty cool defensive quirk here. So 10% of our incoming damage bypasses our energy shield and hits your life instead. So that makes our damage intake a little bit more predictable, but that's actually pretty strong due to, we'll actually talk about here in a minute, it's from the Eternal Life node, but it's very important in this build to keep your energy shield up. So next, let's talk about a Necromantic Conduit. So Necromantic Conduit over here on the left, and this is going to give your minions something called Unholy Might, which converts 30% of all their extra damage into chaos. And this is really nice because this allows us to benefit from elemental and chaos scaling. So this means that chaos damage is really, really strong for us because any type of damage that we do is essentially converted into chaos damage. Now, there's a catch to this. You will lose 5% of your max mana per second while this is active, but we do have a couple passives that we'll talk about earlier, which will help kind of negate this. And once you have this online, our skeletons will start to melt everything. They're also taking a node called Eternal Life, so your life cannot change while you have an energy shield. So this is why it's kind of nice to have from Soulless Form that 10% of damage bypasses the energy shield and instead hits our life, because basically as long as that energy shield is up, we completely negate that 10% additional damage. And then we're also taking here something called Crystalline Phylactery. So this is going to give us an extra jewel socket and double the effects of any jewels placed there. This is going to be a big part of our in-game scaling. Okay, let's go ahead and go into our passive tree now. So you can see with this tree, we kind of go up here to the top left-hand side of the tree. So you kind of start going down the middle and then you kind of veer left. So some of the main nodes that we're after is actually defensive nodes. So you can see that we're going after Crystalline Flesh for elemental resistances on our minions. We're also going into Ancient Aegis here for increased armor and energy shield. And down here at the bottom left, we're also going into Holy Protector so that our minions have increased max life. A few other key nodes that we're going for is Vile Mending. Again, more max life and chaos resistance to our minions. We're also going Grip of Evil, so minions have a 40% increased critical strike damage bonus. To beef up our elemental weakness, we'll be taking Master of Hexes and Lingering Whispers to increase that curse duration. To beef up our energy shield, we'll be taking Melding as well as Insightfulness. We're taking Zone of Control, again, to beef up our curses. And yeah, for the most part, it's going to be nodes that increase damage to our minions or any sort of defensive nodes that will increase our energy shield, our resistances, our minions resistances. You kind of get the point of what we're going for here. So nothing specific to like lightning damage, really. For the most part, it's all funneled into our minion damage. So for our gear on our scepter, on our helmet, and on our amulet, we want to get plus level to our minion skills. You can kind of see it there at the very bottom. This is going to be a huge boost to our damage. In our second slot, we can put on a chiming staff so that we can precast our sigil power before a boss. Another thing you'll want as well on these three items is that percent increased spirit. This is going to be really important because this is what's basically going to fuel all of our minions. So try to get as much percent increase spirit just in general on any items that you can. Another thing you want, especially on your body armor and on your boots, is plus energy shield. This is going to make you quite a bit tankier and synergize really well, again, with our ascendancies that we talked about earlier. On our rings, if you can get plus spirit, that's really nice as well. So Venter's Gamble Gold Ring is really good, as it's also paired with a little bit of resistance. Then in terms of our talisman here, so on our Rattling Scepter, we're going to go a Primate Talisman. This is basically going to make our minions do increased damage. In our helmet, we'll be running a Talisman of Ralakesh, and we'll also be running 2 of these in our belt as well. Apologies, here we go. In our belt, this is basically going to increase the reservation efficiency of our minion skills, which means that we don't have to reserve as much spirit, which basically means we can have more minions out if each minion costs less spirit. And then once we get over 360 spirit, we also want to get an Amanamu's Gaze. So this is basically going to give us movement speed per how much spirit that we actually have. So 360 spirit is where this becomes efficient to actually use it. The downside of this is this will remove your sprint. However, this is still super worth it to use and will make your overall just quality of life better in this build, as you can kind of stick to your minions a little bit better, right? To provide them the aura effect to apply our Necromantic Conduit. Now, that's one thing I did not talk about earlier that I did miss. I apologize. So on our Necromantic Conduit here, while you are not low on mana and your allies are in your presence. So you have, I believe it's a 4-meter range around yourself that your minions have to be in to get this buff. So you kind of have to be close to your minions to give them this Unholy Might buff. So very, very important to be around your minions. And yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for this build. I think we covered pretty much everything here. Again, if you there's a link in the description of this video if you want to come out here and kind of go through the different phases, right? Like Act 1, Act 2, whatever, depending on where you're at in the game. Of course, this guy just covered the late game mapping. If you guys enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up. We put a lot of time into these specific guides, making them, understanding them. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one.